District residents continued to hold demonstrations against Donald Trump. On December 16th, the Asian American and Pacific Islander community were the last organized group to hold a demonstration against the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. The Asian American community is standing in support of the Muslim community after Mr. Trump issued a statement calling on the U.S. to deny entrance to any Muslims traveling to the U.S.
Asian American history tells us that we cannot stand by while hateful rhetoric is used to demean and exclude Muslim Americans. For me, what hit home was hearing the call for a new Muslim Exclusion Act, and 1,000 uninformed voices agree with them. I was born a long time after the Chinese Exclusion Act, but it is central to my family's history, and I am conscious of it even today. When my grandfather immigrated in 1929, he was not accepted with open arms by America. He was shunned and rejected. He was forced to work marginal jobs as a laundryman or a cook, what they used to call coolie labor, because people never thought that he had the intellectual capability to do any better. Though my grandfather faced racism constantly throughout his life, the racism that most profoundly affected him was legalized and codified in the Chinese Exclusion Act. This racist law, passed in 1882 and upheld until 1943, was xenophobia and racism of the worst kind. It completely barred any legal means of immigration from China and forced generations of Chinese Americans like my grandfather to come to the U.S. with no papers and no opportunity to become citizens.
Right, we're seeing Trump and others begin to really escalate their Islamophobic rhetoric, and we're feeling that impact in our communities, especially those of us who are Muslim, who are South Asian, who are feeling the impact of these words on our bodies. But I also want to be clear that the crisis of rhetoric is not the same as a crisis of policy, and that crisis of policy has been ongoing for a very long time. Right, so policies like CVE, countering violent extremism, that have legalized Islamophobia in our government, in our country. Programs like PrEP, the Priority Enforcement Program, that have legalized profiling in our immigration enforcement. Right, the Department of Homeland Security, which still does not have a guidance against racial profiling here in the U.S. Those are crises that have existed long before Donald Trump gained a spotlight.
14 years ago, in the days following the 9/11 attacks, NAPABA came together with other members of the Asian Pacific American community in this very same spot to denounce anti-Muslim hate and violence. And it's a very sad day that we have to be here together again. But we stand here together to raise our voices against hate. We stand here together to raise our voices against acts of violence that are terrorizing Muslim, Arab, Sikh, and South Asian American communities.
This is one of many anti-Trump demonstrations in D.C. that started shortly after Mr. Trump called Mexicans rapists and criminals.
The name of the boat that brought my family to this country wasn't the Mayflower, and as a descendant of immigrants, I'm proud to welcome the generations of those who have continued to come and build this as a great nation. In South Carolina, the Confederate flag is coming down. A federal court has ruled that the Washington Redskins logo, which is racially offensive, will not receive federal protection, and our own Department of Interior has made it clear that that logo will not be on federal property because of its hurtful connotations. Well, right down the street is a symbol that is taking on that same level of racist and hurtful connotation, the Trump logo, which is also on federal land, also on federal property. Mr. Trump didn't build that building. He didn't buy that building, and he doesn't own the land. That's the people's building, and we're here to ask that the Department of Interior take that logo off that scaffolding that's on our land, not his.
But in reality, I hate everyone. Anyone who can't give me this stuff. I love this stuff. So thank you very much for coming, everyone.